Sonoro.com.
Do you want citizenship for
we're going to morph into it. It's going to happen at some point in the future.
Morph into it.
Over a period of 10 to 12 years. If they do a great job, I think it's a nice thing to have the incentive of, after a period of years, being able to become a citizen.
How much do you need for your wall, Mr. President? 20 billion?
Well, I'm going to build it way under budget, but we're putting down 25 billion for the wall. I can tell you this: if you don't have a wall, you don't have Daca.
That was President Trump with reporters Wednesday. There are an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S. today. More than half of them have been here for over a decade. Their future, along with others hoping to come to the U.S., again caught up in the battle over immigration. Most pressing, the fate of the dreamers, those brought here illegally as children. In 2012, President Obama gave them legal protection under Daca, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy. But President Trump undid that last fall, putting the fate of 690,000 active Daca recipients in the hands of Congress. It's the issue that shut down the government last week. Congress now giving themselves until February 8th to negotiate a new deal or possibly face another shutdown. So as the White House and Congress negotiate in Washington, we took off this week on a journey that took us to all 4 states that line the southern border for a closer look at the view from the ground. Sunrise over the Pacific, San Diego. It is where the 1,900-mile-long U.S.-Mexico border begins. It is where we begin. A journey to see just what this immigration debate looks like for those who see it up close, who live it every day, starting right here on the Pacific Ocean. This is not only where the border with Mexico begins. California is also the place where there are more dreamers than any place in the country. More than a quarter of all DACA recipients live here, including Dulce Garcia. She has called San Diego home ever since she arrived here 30 years ago at the age of 4.
My mom had heard of the American dream, and she wanted us to experience that. And she knew my dreams wouldn't be fulfilled in the place where we were because her dreams weren't fulfilled.
But Dulce's dreams have come true. After applying for DACA, Dulce went to college and then on to law school.
My family has been here 30 years, paying taxes, contributing with our labor. We've created businesses. We are job creators.
As long as you've lived here, there are people who would say, look, others came here legally.
I understand that we broke the law by being here, right? That I feel there should be a way for us to become lawful immigrants, to become citizens someday.
Right now! Polls show that the vast majority of Americans, 87%, support DACA recipients remaining in the country, including Trump supporter Debbie Goldhagen. You live, 10 miles from the border here, yes. Probably. Do you think dreamers should be able to stay?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, let them stay.
But a third of the country supports building the wall between the U.S. and Mexico.
I think it would stop a lot of them from coming over. I mean, I'm sorry, they need to come over here to take care of their families. I understand that, but most of them come over and a lot of them earn their money and they send it back down there and they're not spending it here. Aren't we supposed to be boosting or taking care of us first?
Just outside San Diego, prototypes for the border wall were constructed last fall. Some solid, some see-through. As we head east through this vast desert, the enormity of the task to build a wall is stunningly obvious. We're just across the border now from Mexico, still in California, just past miles and miles and miles of these very rocky hillsides and the desert scrub you see over there. It's no wonder that building a wall would cost billions and billions of dollars. Barriers already stretch for nearly 700 miles along the border, like this fencing in El Centro, California. But even though the number of border apprehensions has fallen under President Trump, the wall, even mobile observation towers, still offer little discouragement in the face of desperation for some. Mexico is just to my left. The Border Patrol is up and down these roads every day. They say they find people crossing over every day. Down the road in Calexico, a town of 40,000, the border fence runs just steps from a main drag. Luis Sedina came here when he was about 10, illegally overstaying his visa. His wife is American, so he now has a green card. Do you think we should let others in?
I think there should be more control of who gets into the country and how they get into the country, because we do need low-skilled workers to do the jobs that most Americans don't want to do.
As dusk begins to fall, we watch a train wind its way near the border as we make our way to Tucson, Arizona, to meet up with more dreamers. A blazing flash of color signals the end of the day, and with it, word of the White House announcement of a framework on immigration. President Trump proposing a $25 billion trust for the wall and additional security. For the Dreamers, a 10 to 12-year path to citizenship that would include some 1.8 million people who arrived here illegally as children. But it would end so-called family migration. Only spouses or minor children would be included, not parents.
I'm trying to get my master's afterwards.
Both Raimundo Montes and Mical Alvarado Diaz heard the news as well. They were both brought to the U.S. illegally by their parents when they were children. Mical is a nursing student and Daca recipient.
What's your reaction to what we heard from the White House?
I would love to be able to be a citizen, but I think for me and for what we see in our own community is that it would be a lot more important to be able to keep our families together.
And this would definitely not. Your parents would remain illegal, possibility that they could be sent back.
Children grow up not knowing whether their parents are going to make it home from work. We still have members of our community being detained every day.
As for the wall, Raimundo thinks it will go the way of the Berlin Wall.
They can build a wall. It will be a nice tourist attraction in a couple years, but it's not really something that will stop people from coming, because the majority of people that come to U.S. is to get a better life.
But that wall is the #1 priority for Dr. Kelly Ward.
Who wants to build the wall?
She is running for the Republican Senate nomination in Arizona this year, and while she is a big booster of the president, she breaks with him on legalizing the Dreamers before the wall is complete.
The White House is proposing that they expand the population eligible for citizenship, not just those Dreamers who are registered, but move it to 1.8, those who are eligible. Do you agree with that? Is that fair?
Well, I mean, I think that we shouldn't be having those discussions until we fund and build the wall, we get rid of the chain migration, we end the diversity lottery, we defund the sanctuary cities, and we implement E-Verify. We have to do those things first, because any of the discussion and the debate and the bring in the emotion on about this population and others just drives more illegal immigration to occur while everything is in limbo, and that's not what we want.
So you were deeply disappointed in what President Trump did?
Well, I'm disappointed in the White House's proposal because I want to stand firm on what the American citizens were sold on the campaign trail.
The next morning, my team and I were back on the road, traveling next door to New Mexico, making our way down to the Santa Teresa Border Patrol Station. Here in New Mexico, where there are already miles and miles of barriers and fences, there are still more than 75,000 undocumented immigrants. We met up with Republican Congressman Steve Pierce. He's running for governor this year and stumped for Trump in 2016, but thinks building the wall is a waste of money. You do not believe in a big $25-35 billion wall?
No. The money could be spent for so many things. Our agents out here are completely unprotected. They're doing a very dangerous job. Everyone wants to secure the border, but let's be thoughtful about it. Let's don't just throw money at it.
Congressman Pierce would prefer more resources be directed towards staffing and technology to secure the border, because it's not just people illegally crossing, but drug smuggling and other criminal activity that a wall alone can't prevent.
So even with this structure, they're coming over with ultralights. They don't know it's not manned, and they remote trigger the drug package, 300 pounds, drops here with a GPS locator. Somebody comes and picks it up, And so you get a $35 billion wall and you defeat it with a $3,000 ultralight.
As for the Dreamers, Pierce would prefer just giving them legal status, but is open to the idea of a path to citizenship.
People looking for a better life coming here, I'm very sympathetic to that. I grew up dirt poor, and so I know what it's like looking for hope and opportunity. But let's do it the right way. 1,500 miles from where our journey started in San Diego, Dreamers were out this weekend alongside environmental groups protesting the proposed wall.
They are holding us hostage by pushing for a border wall, preventing us from being and living with our families and members of our communities.
Texas Democratic Congressman Vicente Gonzalez voted to end the shutdown this past week.
Well, it's pretty shameful that we're playing pawns with young children's lives.
But he remains hopeful that a solution for the Dreamers will be found.
I'm optimistic that we're going to find a resolution and that we eventually get to a finality on this issue and get it done and put it to rest and move on with the people's business.
All along the border we traveled, the desire to get something done is clear on all sides. But whether Washington can get beyond the political divide to reach a final deal may be the biggest barrier of all. So can Congress make a deal? The Powerhouse Round.